Hi, welcome to another edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. I'm going to do a video that I haven't done in a while called Treasure or Trash. This is a series I do where I discuss what's universally considered pretty much an artist's worst album. It didn't get any kind of critical respect. It may have been a commercial failure. So artistically, commercially, just pretty much considered not too good. And today I'm going to be talking about the Rolling Stones' worst studio record. I don't think anybody would argue that one. And that is Dirty Work. It's a really fascinating album. It's an interesting story, an interesting part of the Rolling Stones' history, and I'll go through it. So let's kind of frame it. 1981, the Stones released Tattoo You. They're the world's biggest band. Their tour is massive, selling out stadiums worldwide. Tattoo You is a huge hit. The Stones have had a #1 studio album in the United States ever since Sticky Fingers in 1971. So all of their studio albums go to #1 through Tattoo You. Massive hit with Start Me Up, the last, pretty much the last definitive Rolling Stones single for sure. 2 years later, they released this album, really interesting record that I really like called Undercover. And this is the cover, which I actually love. A lot of people hate it, but I don't care. I love this cover. And I thought this was a really, really interesting album. They did 12-inch singles, which were pretty popular at the time. Here's Undercover of the Night. And then the second single was She Was Hot. Cool track. And then the third single was the 12-inch of Too Much Blood, which is one of my all-time favorite Stones songs, believe it or not. Love that track. But that was also the age of MTV. And I hope this doesn't fall. Let's put this back. MTV, of course, was really coming into its prime then, and the Stones did videos for Undercover of the Night, and She Was Hot and Too Much Blood, and they were great videos. And then they put out this amazing VHS, Video Rewind, a collection of great Rolling Stones videos. Bill Wyman was kind of narrating it to a certain extent. It's an awesome video. So that was the Stones in '83. Now, Undercover did not hit #1 in the United States, which was kind of a disappointment. But it really is not a commercial Stones album. I call it a great Rolling Stones album for big Rolling Stones fans. It's just different. Now the Stones are kind of on shaky ground, right? So let's move ahead now, 3 years later, 1986, for Dirty Work. They signed a new record contract with CBS. They have their own record label, Rolling Stones Records, but it's now going to be distributed on CBS with Walter Yetnikoff. He makes a deal with the Stones. He also makes a deal with Mick Jagger, who is now going to have a solo career. And the Stones were not in good shape, which we're going to get into. Personally, health-wise, musically, they were at their low point. And now they signed this big contract with CBS. So Jagger's going to work on his solo career, which was part of the contract. He's going to do She's the Boss. Publicity for that is he does this big video called Running Out of Luck. And Dirty Work becomes Keith's album because Mick and Keith are at their low ebb. Keith calls it World War III, and you could actually see it all over this album. And that's one of the amazing things about this album. And here's the original CD. And look at that cover. Have you ever seen a worse Rolling Stones cover? Dayglow, that 80s neon kind of design and color scheme. But look at that cover. It's all right there. I have the original CD, the digitally remastered CD. Here's the original vinyl. Now, it came in this cover, and it came with like a pink kind of wrap, as you can see. Here's the hype sticker. And it says, the mean lean hits of Harlem Shuffle, One Hit to the Body, and Winnin' Ugly. And then inside, it was the first time the Stones ever put their lyrics. Apparently, CBS was demanding that. Good luck trying to read them, even on the vinyl. And they got little drawings and little graphics, and there's a cartoon, Dirty Workout on the back. And then on the vinyl, even the label got a different picture of the Stones lounging around on the couch. Terrible cover. But what do you see on this cover? Well, as it's about to fall. What do you see on this cover? Well, you see Keith right in the middle, running the show. He's looking lean and mean. Mick's off to the side, right? With his leg up. Charlie, Well, look at Charlie. We're going to find out about Charlie because that picture of Charlie is very apropos. And there's Ronnie Wood, not looking so happy because he's always stuck in the middle between Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. And Bill Wyman looking mighty bored because Bill Wyman is barely on this album. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people talk about Dirty Work and say, well, it's all Mick and Keith. They were at their low ebb, and they certainly were. But Charlie Watts was at his low ebb. It turned out that Charlie Watts was having alcohol problems and heroin addiction, very unlike Charlie. So he was not in good shape at this time. Bill Wyman, well, he was getting involved with Mandy Smith, who he would later marry. He was not even on this album, barely. Bill Wyman is only on 4 of these songs. There's 10 songs on this album, and Bill Wyman's only on 4 of them. Charlie Watts is not on every song either. So the band is completely fractured. Mick and Keith, their relationship is terrible. Partly, maybe Mick's going to have a solo career, but clearly there was things even before that were just not working out. This band is fractured, and that's the cool thing about this album. It's all in the grooves and on the cover. And it's actually kind of amazing that the album is sort of better than it even had a right to be, because considering everything that was going on with the band, it's actually pretty amazing they were able to do anything. So this becomes Keith's album. He's the driving force. Ronnie Wood, he's got 4 song credits on this album out of 10. And there's 2 covers. So let's quickly go through the songs and what we're dealing with here. One Hit to the Body is the opening track. You can't really see it on here, so let's go back to one of the CDs. One Hit to the Body is the opening track. You knew that was going to happen. One Hit to the Body is the opening track. And I actually think One Hit to the Body is one of the all-time great Rolling Stones opening tracks. Bear with me a second here, folks. It opens up with this acoustic guitar riff, which is Ronnie, and then you get this blazing guitar, electric guitar that kicks in. It's a really powerful song, and you get the guest Jimmy Page, who does the 2 guitar solos in there, cool guitar solos. One Hit to the Body is one of the all-time great opening tracks on any Rolling Stones album. It really is that good. They did an amazing video. The video is kind of like this industrial park, and Mick and Keith are going at it with each other, just like the song is, One Hit to the Body, and they just want to pummel each other in this video, and they're not acting. You can clearly see it. It's all right there. The second track is called Fight. So Fight is exactly what it says. We're going to get into a fight. It's just raw. I'm going to punch your face to bruises. It's pretty wild. So you got Ronnie Wood writing songs. Ronnie Wood is credited on One Hit to the Body. He's also credited on Fight. Jagger's vocals on both of those are really fierce. So you could sense the anger from Jagger towards Keith, obviously from Keith towards Mick. And it's a great 1-2 opener on this album. They're nasty songs. Everything that they're fighting with in real life is in those grooves. The third song is the single, Harlem Shuffle, which is a cover song, and the Stones released that as the single, which doesn't bode well for the album, because it's kind of rare that the Stones in the modern times were releasing singles of covers. They did the second single from It's Only Rock and Roll was Ain't Too Proud to Beg, which is a good cover. But that album, and I love that album, but it didn't have a lot of good single opportunities. And on this album, it's very apparent, really the only single opportunity on there is Harlem Shuffle, and it's a cover. And it's really not that original. The Stones are really doing a Stonesy version of the original version, but it's not all that different. It's fine. I kind of think it's boring to a certain extent, but it's certainly the most commercial aspect to this album, and I understand why they released it as a single. And it did pretty well. Great video. The fourth song you get is Hold Back. Man, it is just a mess. It's just, this whole album's got that 80s production. The drums are so damn loud, especially on the remastered CD where it's brick-walled. Oh my God, the drums are so loud. But Hold Back is just a mess. Jagger's like hoarse. He's over-singing it. He's almost screaming it. It's just a messy song. It's just, I'm not a big fan. Now, Bill Wyman, I mentioned, is only on 4 songs. He's not on Fight, and he's not on Hold Back, which we're talking about. Now, the next song is called Too Rude. That's the second cover, and that's a reggae song that's a really deep cut. I don't think too many people here in America knew it, at least until the Stones did it on this album. And Keith sings Too Rude, and it's awesome. It's a great track on this album. It sounds like genuine reggae, but here's the fascinating thing about Too Rude. There's only 2 Rolling Stones on that song. Keith Richards, who sings, and Ronnie Wood. Who's playing the drums? There's great drums on it. Is it Charlie? It's not Charlie. It's actually Ronnie Wood playing the drums on Too Rude. So even Charlie's missing in action all over this album. So Too Rude is just Keith and Woody, but it's a great, great track. You really want to hear a really great version of it. This live Keith Richards and the Expensive Vinyl CD. Do a great version of Too Rude on that. Really, really great. So there's Too Rude, and that's the end of side 1. So what do you got? The single's a cover, kind of not all out original, but it's pretty slick. Hold Back, God, it's just a noisy mess. Too Rude, really good reggae track, but it's also a cover. And then you got One Hit to the Body and Fight. Blistering rock and roll with the band. It's just putting it out there how angry they are with each other. Side 2 is also kind of messy. It starts off with Winning Ugly, which is a song I can't stand. It doesn't sound like it belongs on this album at all, because this is very much Keith's album, and you can tell that first side is got a lot of blistering guitar. Winning Ugly is that 80s synth. I don't know what the hell it is. It's kind of Duran. Is it Duran Duranish? I don't know. It's just that 80s synth kind of crap. And Winning Ugly was a single, at least in Canada, the 3rd single from this album. They only put it out in Canada. I don't think it did too well. But Winning Ugly wouldn't even make it, in my opinion, on Mick's solo record, She's the Boss. And I like She's the Boss, so I'm not picking on Mick's solo career. But it just sounds like a bad Jagger solo track. Back to Zero comes after that, and it's kind of similar. It's got that 80s synthetic kind of sound. It's just, bleh. Also, just, I like it better than Winning Ugly, but not much better. It also sounds like Jagger solo. And talking about Bill Wyman, he wasn't on Fight. He wasn't on Hold Back. He's not on Too Rude. He's not on Winning Ugly. And he ain't on Back to Zero. Where is he? He's missing in action completely. Next track is the title track, Dirty Work. I love that track. That is a blistering, hard rock, really good track. It fits really well with One Hit to the Body and Fight. You know, you put those two with Dirty Work, and you got a blistering, hard rock Rolling Stones right there. Dirty Work's a really, really cool track. Like that one. And then you got Had It With You, which is an interesting track. Another kind of rocker that Woody had a hand in writing that one as well. And Dirty Work. So Woody's got 4 songwriting credits on this album. Had It With You is interesting. There's no bass on it. So Bill Wyman's not on that one either, but they decided to leave out the bass completely, which gives it a strange feeling. Keith liked it without the bass. I think maybe it would have been a little bit more powerful with a bass, but there ain't no bass on Had It With You. And then the last track is Keith and Woody again. No other members of the Stones. You're like, well, isn't Charlie playing the drums on that? Nope, Sleep Tonight has got Woody playing the drums again. And it's a really good ballad. Maybe it's a little long at 5 minutes and 10 seconds, but I really do like it. It's a really good, kind of classy track. So, you know, when you talk about Keith's album, you can tell that, like any great partnership, they both need each other desperately. This album is sorely lacking. You know, some of the rockers are great, but you get like Winning Ugly and Back to Zero, which is more the Jagger stuff, and that wouldn't even cut it on Jagger solo records, in my opinion. You got 2 covers and Harlem Shuffle, which was the hit single. You know, it's just, to me, I don't know. To me, it's almost like a throwaway Stones. They did release 12 inches. Let's see if this falls. Here's the 12-inch of Harlem Shuffle. Had a great video, by the way. And then here's a 12-inch of One Hit to the Body. Cool artwork, which Fight as the B-side. So there you go. So considering everything that they were going on, Bill Wyman missing in action, Charlie Watts turned out that he was on heroin and alcohol problems, and he didn't play drums on all of the songs on this album. And the drums are very overloaded in the production, which was produced by Steve Lillywhite. Sometimes people question if is it even Charlie playing the drums. Not really sure because it's so high in the mix, but some of this stuff does sound like Charlie, even though it's loud. So I guess it probably was Charlie when he was playing. Ronnie Wood played drums, like I mentioned to you. Ronnie's got 4 songwriting credits. The band's a mess, and thankfully they took a 3-year break after this, and they came back in 1989 with Steel Wheels, a huge worldwide tour that was the biggest tour of all time, unbelievable staging, and Steel Wheels, a long, great CD with all different textures, a vast improvement. The idea that they should have toured Dirty Work, which was what Keith was saying, is so ridiculous. I don't even know where Keith's coming from. I don't think they could walk across the street, forget about doing a worldwide tour for Dirty Work. They never would have survived. But anyway, what do you think about Dirty Work? Is it trash? Is it treasure? It is definitely, in my opinion, the worst Rolling Stones studio record, but the worst Rolling Stones studio record is still pretty good, at least in spots. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit subscribe. Please hit like. I got a lot of Rolling Stones videos in my playlist. Treasure and Trash is kind of an interesting playlist as well. You'll see albums that I talk about that are the worst albums, pretty universally, for certain bands like The Hunter by Blondie and Calling All Stations by Genesis and the Rolling Stones' Dirty Work. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Stay safe, stay healthy. I'll see you next time on the Alan Rosenberg Show.